Hello, my name is J.J. Leadbetter. I belong to the Masonic family, York right side. But for this broadcast, I thought I would start off with the word J.J. J.J. means Jack or John. I was christened as John Roy Leadbetter. Shortly after being christened, my mother found out that John, the person I was named after, was a homosexual. So she would have nothing more to do with the John. So I became Jack. I hit the armed forces. I became John again. I came out of the armed forces. I was back to Jack. So this went along for quite some time until one of my nieces said, no, JJ. So that was buried for a while. And a little later on, after I became a Mason, I became a clown. And when I registered for a clown, the man behind the desk said, what shall you be called? And my dear little wife was standing right behind me, and she said, JJ. JJ the Happy Wonder was born. But let's go back in history a little bit. Let's go back. I was born in 1937. I was born with an illness called celiac disease. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew how to cure it. I stayed for 5 years in a baby's crib. They took me out of the baby's crib in '42, and I used to get bananas in a black box because bananas in the Second World War were unheard of, but it was the potassium that kept me alive. So every Friday, we would get this black box. I tried to give those bananas to people. I tried everything under the sun, but no dice. So this fight, we kept up going. And shortly after I got home, they hired an old lady to supervise me and make sure that I was dry and all this. And I taught myself how to walk. And the shock on the babysitter's face was not half as good as my mother's. Because when my mother seen me walking, holy heavens, she pretty much through the roof. But anyway, I learned to walk. I went into school in grade 2. I skipped one altogether. I went into 2, and I was only in 2 or 3 weeks. They put me in grade 3. So I got along quite well. But then at 12, I managed to get another disease called which is called poliomyelitis. I can't even say that word. And it crippled me. I was a human log. I spent 3-4 days in an iron lung. And if you know me, I talked my way out of the iron lung. I gave it to a lady that had 3 children, and I figured she needed it more than I did. As history records, she died. I lived because I got out of the iron lung, and I started taking camel hair treatments. Camel hair treatments was a system of taking the hair off the camel, matting it, putting it in extremely hot water, and throwing it in our system. It was to reactivate the nerves. Well, they thought they were doing pretty good, but again, in my way of doing things, I was deciding it was too boring laying in bed, so I used to crawl down the bottom of the bed, crawl down to the floor, crawl across the floor, and talk to the people on the other wing. And I was almost 6 weeks before they discovered that I was walking. Good heavens, they threw me in the bed and strapped me down, and what they didn't call me wasn't worth talking about. But consequently, I've got a bent spine, so that didn't help much. So as time went on, I decided, I went to school. I failed grade 10 because it was just too hard. My brain wouldn't take it. Years later, we found out why. Nevertheless, at this point in the game, I went to an outfit called the Ground Observer Corps, which was pre-runner of radar. It was humans pointing to the sky, saying, I see a plane, so many engines going so-and-so direction, and sending the information into people like myself. With the bad legs, I could sit there and I could plot to my heart's content and get pretty good at it. When I turned 16, the commanding officer hauled me into his office and said, young fella, I think you need to leave your mother. I said, that's a good idea. Where am I going? He said, you're going in the Air Force. It's a good idea. Now remember, I told you that I had celiac disease and I got post-polio. You're going in anyways. Well, just like everything else in my life, it was different. I was assigned an airman, and the airman did all the answers for me. He told me things I never knew I had. And out the other side, they swore me in as an airman. I was an airman, and I was, due to my diseases, I wasn't allowed to leave Canada or anything like that. So I said, fine, I was doing very good. And in the meantime, I got married, had 2 children, and an unfortunate incident my wife got into, I had to leave. So I ended up back in Moncton, did various things for various people. I'm trying to think very fast of whether the Mounties came next. No, I got into Masons first. I got into Masons in 1980. And I joined Acacia, and Acacia told me that I was too stupid, that I could never get a higher rank, so I might as well give up right now. Well, that just didn't exactly hit me right. So I told them that's fine, and I went out to Salisbury, to a small lodge out there, and I spent 20-some odd years there. While I was at Salisbury, I did most of the York Rite. And I went through, and for those with New York Rite, I went to KYCH and became eminent prior to the KYCH group in Halifax. Well, that was a something. And the thing that I pulled there, a lot of people don't know about, is I marched back into Acacia, first time in 25 years probably. Sat down, and I waited for them to all have the greetings, everything like that. And if you're familiar with the Masonic order, the stone the builders rejected ended up as the head of the corner. So I got up and said that. Well, the older boys knew exactly what it was, and they turned red-faced, and the younger people didn't have a clue. And anyway, I left there, and I went home. In the meantime, while I was trying to do these other orders, I joined a thing called Kodiak RCMP Volunteers. And I spent 9 years there. And I had problems with them because I was doing good. But they found out a whole bunch of us couldn't speak French. So we had 52 volunteers. And when the sergeant got finished, there was 48 gone and 4 left. I was not one of the 4. So that was fine. Time went on. I get up in Masons, I get up on that, and then I went into the shrine, and I became JJ the Happy Wonder. I took my degree in clowning over a period of 5 years. And we went down to a place in the United States and Massachusetts, one weekend every winter, and it always snowed that weekend, never failed, but we got there. So things went along pretty good there. I got my degree, and JJ got quite famous. I'm the only clown that's ever been registered as a clown at the Moncton Hospital. And you might know is Leonard C. Jones. Well, Leonard joined my clown unit in, I'm not quite sure what date, but anyways, I have a picture of it if any time you want to see him. And I had the JJ Sneaker unit. I had a school of clowning. Did quite well at that, and various things. But some of the things that happened to me on the way up is that we were clowning in Montreal. We were doing what they used to call the night parade of the Imperial. And we were having a ball. So all of a sudden, JJ gets lost. He's not with anybody. Can't see a thing. No, sir, there's not a person around. Very, very bad neighborhood. Oh, I knew I was in trouble. But nevertheless, as I was going, and probably deeper into debt, this man tapped me on the shoulders. And he said, "Brother?" I said, "Yes, I am a brother." "And you, sir?" "Yes." "You travel in the East?" "Yes, I'm traveling in the East." Well, he said, "I think if you go any further east, this way you're going to be in trouble." So he decided to assist me to get out of this predicament I was in. And we had walked about 6 or 8 blocks, and he was talking back and forth, and he said, "Did you ever hear of 1775? "No." I said, "How'd you like to join?" He was the secretary, it turned out. I said, "Good idea. When are we going to start?" He said, "You meet me at the hotel at a certain time, and I'll have all the papers ready for you to sign." So I did. I had a ball with them. I went many, many places, many, many times. I even brought them to Moncton once. I brought them to Dartmouth once, and Charlottetown once. And the Charlottetown one is where you see pictures of me being initiated. Because I never thought, want to be a member. No, you're going to go through the whole ceremony. So here's this Canuck hooked to the American group. Now, 1775 is a group that when the Americans had the revolution, this group wanted to remain faithful to the crown. So they went underground, or they went to Canada, one of the two. About 50, 60 years, nobody over that. Anyways, they resurfaced in 1980, same year as I started. No, I joined clowning in 1985. Probably close to it. They resurfaced, and they were trying to get their act together and put this together, that together. They were doing quite well. So I ended up as the only Canadian ever to don their uniform and to take part in it. But going back some for a few minutes, we're talking about some of the things that I have had fun at. I was just young when I joined the services. I was a fighter cop. And at 17, they left me alone in the control tower. No, our control tower. We were at the station with radar sight. And 2 jets got in trouble out over the Atlantic Ocean. So, not knowing too much, I decided to help them out. So there's not an officer around, there's nobody around. They all decided they were going to sleep. Well, maybe I would too, but I didn't. So I assisted the 2 of them and landed them. There, that's over. I flaked out. First thing you know, these 2 officers that I saved their life showed up at my console and said, "Airman, you're asleep." I said, "Yes, sir. The pressure was just too much for me." Well, he said, "We came up to give you a medal, but we should court-martial you for sleeping on the job, so we're just going to skip it." So I lost out that medal. A little later on in my Air Force career, we went to a basketball game. They loaded up the bus, all the girls and guys, but the girls were playing. And we were playing in Petawawa. We were at Foymount. And we were coming out after the game. We'd lost it terribly. They beat us something terrible. The flight sergeant says, "We can't go without nothing. Girls, what are you wearing? Skirts, good. Put that picture underneath there, put that picture underneath there." They'll never notice when they hit the border and we hit the MPs, because they'll check us going out the gate. So we did. Well, we were, I bet you, 2 miles away from the base. And the flight sergeant says, no, this isn't enough. They beat us badly. "Leadbetter, where are you at?" "Sir." "Do you drive yet?" "Yes, sir." Well, he said, "You're going back with a Jeep." I said, "Where's the Jeep?" He said, "I'll be here in a minute. I've already called for it." So he called for a Jeep. Jeep showed up. I said, "Where are we going, sir?" He said, "Remember that cannon that sat in the front? Well, it dates back to probably First World War, maybe before. Well, it's ours now." "You gotta be kidding, sir." No, 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 no. So that's a mechanic, and all you have to do is be able to back the Jeep up. That's all I'm asking. He'll do the rest. So we did. We took it back to the base, and we put one wheel in one bearing block, one wheel in another bearing block, and the cannon itself went in the third place, so that nobody could absolutely say that we had it. Well, it hit Parliament, and it caused one devil of a stink. But nevertheless, we had it for a long while. Now, if you do go to Petawawa, and you do go through the front gate, you will admire what they did to their poor cannon. They've cased it in cement, so no other idiots could pick it up and take it away. And that is today's history. We were up there a couple of years ago just to see if it was still in cement. And after that, we had more fun. Once they taught me how to have fun, we had quite a bit of fun. One officer got under our collar, and we just had to do something with him. So my roommate was an air tech, which he means he loads the planes and things like that. And we were flying Fairchilds at the time. Boxcars is what most people called them. So I went down to the compound, and I found an old antique fire truck. Well, it wasn't antique, they were still keeping track of it, that was on this officer's inventory. I got it started, and I drove it down to the airport. Poor old Prokopchi said, "We're going to get in shit for this." Lowered the back of the airplane. We drove it on, put up the door, and he got a couple pilots that needed the training hours, and said, "Excuse me, where's this going to? When you get to Dorval, just unload it. There's a note on to put it in the compound and wait until somebody claims it." Oh, sweet Mary. That poor officer gave us supreme when he figured out who did it, but he never did find his fire truck. One of the officers that was doing inventory wanted to know where the extra fire truck came from. Well, we had to admit to it then. A little bit later on after that, I was stationed at another station called Perrant, and out in Perrant, the commanding officer's one true wish was to have a band. Okay, so Flight Sergeant Barbeau was quite musical. Never played in the band, though. Oh, that won't worry. We won't worry about that. Where are we going to get the instruments? I said, "You leave that up to me." So that was fine. Where did they get them? There was a storage. And every base across Canada, there's a storage where they keep the instruments that are not being used in storage. And I got in good with one of the supply people, and he helped me go to each base and see what's ahead, and I picked out what I needed, and they all sent it in, and we got the band together that played before. We had a band. The band lasted about a year until the bigwig showed up for parade, and he said to the commanding officer, he said, "Look, your men are perfect. I couldn't ask for better. It's too bad you didn't have a band to march with." He said, "Excuse me, sir, do you hear that?" "You didn't." "Oh, yes, sir. Listen, here it comes, 20-piece marching band." He is flattered that we had such a thing. Well, he wasn't flattered the next day when he called me up in the office and gave me shit for being the instigator, no less, of how I got these instruments and got them together and got the... I'm flattered. I'm flabbergasted, too. Can't help it, sir. It was easy. No, it wasn't easy. It was just your thinking. So a little bit later on that, I was a Boy Scout leader. And a couple of boys, in fact, the two boys that wanted to do it were the commanding officer's children. They wanted to build an amateur radio. Well, there was nothing wrong with that. You want to build a little radio? What harm can they get? Holy sweet Mary, they had the CBC and the Oh gosh, the big wigs that run the airwaves and all that came down in a mass. There was 2, 3 cars pulled up to our trailer. We were living in a trailer at the time, and said, "You're broadcasting." Broadcasting? How? We don't know. He said, "Have you got anything in here that you put together?" I said, "No, the kids have been playing with something in the back." Who I didn't even see it. Oh, we pretty got faced with a $1,000 fine. I don't know how Squadron Leader Ball got out of that, but we did. We get out of that. Same base, I started a model shop. And I got so good at bargaining and getting the models cheap that the town put in a complaint that I was cutting their business, so I had to sell my model shop. Where did we go from that base? We went to another base. We went to Gander, Newfoundland. And in Gander, I was called Lucy. If you look at the map, at the very, very top of Newfoundland, there's a St. Anthony. Well, St. Anthony had all-American men. There weren't a lot of women. And we did have women in Gander with us. And they got a hold of me, and I had a high-pitched voice at the time. And they used to talk to me about their problems with men, and oh, it was fantastic. And they would bring down chocolates for me and flowers for me, and I always had an excuse. Lucy just went out the flight. Lucy's doing this. Lucy never caught up with me until I was out of the services about 10 years. Then I thought they were going to kill me for it. But I was out of the service about 10 years when one of them caught up with me here in Moncton. So after the services, I kept on going, and I decided in my mind when I left that I had to do something. So to history, I was one of the founders of the Moncton City Band. That we took the Ma Burbank and the Mel Font band from Dieppe, put them together, first time in history, French and English, and we had a lovely band. And things were going along pretty good, but the young people were sort of rubbing them the wrong way. They wanted their own. So we started the Moncton Youth Band. And we had a 50-piece orchestra, which today you would know is the New Brunswick Youth Orchestra. But again, the teenagers got into my skin, and I quit. So the guy that runs it right now let it lay for a year, then he picked it up and said it was his idea, and I've never argued with him until last year. And I tried to straighten out the record, and it made pretty good sense. Yes, you did that. So that's just one of the things I did. And the Mounties, my downfall in the Mounties, if anything, was a young Mountie came in with a briefcase, and he said, "Would you mind if I put that briefcase there?" I said, "No." So it turns out this poor bugger got sick. And they were tearing the place apart. Ottawa sent in people, and I'm telling you, it was just an absolute chaos in that whole building. And all of a sudden, one of the Mounties that knew me well said, "JJ, would you know where that case was?" And I said, "Yeah, right there." Oh, it was hell to be paid. It was out of this bloody world. Well, that was the beginning of the end with the volunteers, but we all know that now, but we didn't know that at the time. The clowning side, I get into the clowning. I did a little bit of everything. We had a clown school. We had clowns in the schools. We did Beaverbrook. We did Besbro. And we did Claudine Taylor. No, not Claudine Taylor. Edith Cavell. And we would once a week, and we would teach them how right from scratch. And then it was a 16-week program. At the end of the 16 weeks, they put on a concert, and everything was just fine. But in clowning, quite a few things happened to me that were different, other than we talked about the 1775. One that I'm quite famous for is a little kid came out of the crowd, Main Street, Moncton, and Oh, you couldn't ask her. It just reminds you of a Third World War child. He said, Mr. Clown, would you come to my birthday party? And the wife printer had a bird when I said yes, but I did. And then Bradshaw was member of Parliament. But 2 weeks after this happened, she invited us to Parliament Hill for July the 1st. Oh, neither one of us wanted to go. What are we going to use for excuse? That kid's birthday party. Can't go. We got a birthday party. Got to keep our word. So we did. And JJ never forgets nothing, always keeps his word, and that is primarily a good thing. The unit that I had was called JJ Sneaker Unit. It was attached to the Luxor Shrine, and it did have Len Jones in it. Leonard's brother was called Candyman, and he passed away, and Leonard always wanted to fulfill his dream. Well, Leonard did not have the personality to do it, but he did. For 2 or 3 years, he stuck it out. And we were stationed at Salisbury, and if the walls could talk, there'd be an awful lot, because Leonard would say, and Leonard's not the only one that gets mad at me. Most people get mad at me because I will say, okay, fine, and I drop the subject, but only in their eyes. Behind the scenes, I'm putting it all together again, and I got it all figured out how we're going to do it, and then presented to the group. Well, they all accepted. Well, Leonard stood there with an egg on his face. He didn't like that, so he was going to get to me. But one in particular in clowning at the hospital, that at this present moment I'm trying to get a picture, is one day I was clowning at the hospital, and this lady come walking very fast. She was a little older, to try and catch me. I was going out the front door, and she said, my husband is dying of cancer. His last wish is to see you. I said, of course, ma'am. Well, she said, how? I said, forget about how I was getting home. Come on, let's go. So up the stairs we went, 5th floor. Now, the hospital denied this ever happened, and I'm waiting to get the picture, because there was pictures taken. And we went into the room, and he was all by himself. And he says, I know you by reputation. I know you as a Mason, and I am a brother. And he said, I want to have a wheelchair race with you before I die. And I said, you got to be kidding. Now, the wife wasn't with me. She would never let it happen. So I looked at his wife, and she said, if that's what he wants, that's what he should have. I said, fine. You help me get him in a wheelchair. Got him in a wheelchair, and I said, sit there for a minute. Went down to the nurse's station and said, why don't you fellas all go for a coffee on this side? Give me 15 minutes. What are you up to, JJ? Not telling you, but we're going. So we said, fine. So they did disappear. And we moved everything that was in the hall out of the way. And naturally, I let him win. But he got down to the end and, just exalted. So back we go. He says, I think we should do that again. I said, oh, no, not in your life. He said, look, I haven't got that long to live in. I said, I don't care. It's not going to be me. So the wife said, yes, he fulfilled your wish. Now get off. And so in we go into the bed. Now he said, you're comfortable. Oh, he says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the wife says, I'll never be able to thank you enough. Don't worry about it, ma'am. I get down to the door, and one of the boys came along and said, the patient you were playing with? I said, yes, he died. I very seldom go to funerals, but I decided that day I was going to go to this funeral. And if you could possibly see this, I'm sitting in a crowd of people, and I'm not telling anybody who I am, and up at the front is his casket with this picture of him and I racing. Well, it was worth $1 million. And why it's coming to light now, it's just they keep revising the story and keep bringing it up and bringing it up. And I've done a little bit of research since you asked me to do this, and I think we've got to figure out who the widow is, but we don't know if she's alive or not, but we do know who she is. So we're, in another couple of weeks, we should have that. What else has happened? Oh, yes, I was the ambassador for the Sneaker Fund, which was hooked to the Burns unit in Boston. And I was presented with a problem that a child was put into an oil drum and then lit. And when they finally got her out, she was called the freak of Moncton High School. But she went to one place. She started off at the burn unit at the Moncton Hospital, and then from the burn unit at Moncton Hospital, they took her to Halifax. And Halifax said, "You're going to clown up there. You go find him. He will help her, I'll guarantee it." So they brought her to me, and oh God, what a mess. If you could possibly imagine it, one side, hair all burnt, right down the whole side, the arm, the vagina, right down the leg, out the foot. So we sent her to Montreal, and Montreal said, "No, we got to send her to Boston." So they took her to Boston. $1.5 million later, we fixed her, and that's what she looks like today. Yeah. And you talk about the funny things, and she now has a problem with her brain remembering these things. But anyways, we weren't quite sure after reconstructing the female organs that they would work. 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings, and the wife says, "Who in the name of Mary is that?" I said, "I don't know, but I better answer it." "JJ, it works." Clunk. That was all. She shammed it down, and we didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. And what she had done, she had found a very shy boy that he was extremely shy. But nevertheless, he suited Sandy, and he paced himself, and she paced herself, and I suppose it took him 6 months to get to this stage. And then she decided that, well, she couldn't get pregnant anyway. That's what she thought. She was pregnant. Now what? Didn't say too much. But she was a dear friend to us, and she did everything I asked for. She'd go on tours with us and everything. But she got in an automobile accident about 5 years ago. And trying to figure out a few things in my past, I called her up. See what she was doing. "Oh, yeah, she remembered me. What do you want me to do?" So I was telling her what it was to. Well, she said, "I was never burned." And I said, "Oh, no. She said, "I was out too long in the sun and I got burnt that way, but not by what you're saying." And I said, "Well, that's the way it happened, Sandy." Now I said, "Let's face it, Sandy, we were going to give you a Shriner's wedding." "Yes, I do remember that." And I said, "Do you remember me telling the future husband, get you in a car and take you to Boston?" And I called Boston, and I said, there was a counter with all kinds of makeup on. You remember that? "Yeah. I said, "What'd you do with it?" "You said to take an empty purse." And I did. I took a great big bag. And now I said, "You got the purse? You clean it off. You put it all in there, and you say, bye-bye. You just walk out the door." No. She said, "They would catch me." I said, "No, dear, you took it home. And you did up your face. We got one of the beauticians here in Moncton to do up your face. And we gave you a first-class wedding, Shriners and all. We had about 25 Shriners. And we had a ball. That went over very well. Very, very well. We still remember it. But since the car accident, she doesn't remember too many things. But just recently, I needed a patient to represent the Shrine at a golf tournament out in Petty Kodiak. And they were doing it to raise funds for the hospital and all this, so, okay. I'd forgotten about the kid. 30 years ago, I saved his life. His father, he was a year and a half old. He was crying so much his father poured hot water over to see him and shut him up. I put him in jail for 6 months, but that's a minor detail. And we had a ball. We just didn't know what the hell we were going to. But anyways, they brought her down to the post office. And I just got sick with the look of the kid. Because first of all, they didn't know who the hell this JJ was. I was not using the term then. So they found me. I said, yep, you go. She said, sir, you're awful nice, but I can't go out to the Moncton airport and just say my name is so-and-so, JJ sent me. I said, try it. Somehow you sound convincing, so she did. Now where the trick here is that I made an agreement to have a fund. That if any of the kids came along, I would send them immediately to Montreal. That's all the tickets were good for, no place else, just Moncton to Montreal. Cut. And, oh yeah, I'll do it for you, sir, no problem. Oh, I said, that's good. I said, what if you're working? He said, forget it, JJ, no problem. So I wanted to see him, so I had him come in here. And I wanted to see the JJ tattoo, he calls it. And he opened it, and right down here, it's a bare spot. You can just like somebody had pulled the skin right off. And it's that way today. And he says it doesn't hurt a bit, it's just grown up that way. And he says, I've always brought up the JJ. So, I don't know, I've had a wonderful life, and I've had many things happen to me, and I don't think if anything else happened to me, because I'm not immortal as I'm going to do it, I've got one theory. Don't cry for me. I've had one devil of a good life. And I'm looking around here just to see what else I can talk about. I was put in for the Governor General's Caring Katie Award, which Romeo LeBlanc put together. And Romy and I had a discussion after discussion after discussion at the post office, and I was called the directory clerk, the dead letter office. And he used to like to talk to me, so he'd go to the boss and say, I'm going to take Leadbetter away for an hour or so. And we talk about anything. He was going to put the new post office in St. John. I said, no, you got land right here on Big Boulevard. Now come on, get off the pot. So he used to laugh about this. So when this award came out, Caring Canadian Award, somebody put in for it, and he said he had the very damnedest hard time signing it because he couldn't stop thinking of the clown. But he gave it to me. And as time marched on, Prince Philip got a hold of that and liked it, told the Queen that she should take it, so she did. And that is why I have the medal today, is because one thing led into another. And I also was given the provincial 70-year medal and citation from the province. But I think maybe the funniest thing that's happened to me in the last while, Princess Anne was coming here. So they wanted me to be the spokesman, so they had this set up and they had that set up and everything. They came in, they wanted to do a security check on me, and I said, go right ahead. I've had so many in my life. It's like, well, I won't tell you what it's like anyway. And they did all the security check. Okay, we're set. So I went down, and they were going to meet at the physiotherapy room because they wanted to take it away from the boys, because they were all assembled in the big area that you walk by. So that was fine. Took my coat off, took my tie off, put my medals back on. I had 2 medals, boy, and I was proud of them. Now I said, what are you up to? You're in the physiotherapy department. Oh, okay. So the lady that is the deputy, she's second in charge here, she put me up to this. And they say, he's being awful good. And she says, yes, that's what's bothering me. well, we just got to leave it alone and see what he does. So I sat there just as good as anything. She talked to the lady that ran the physiotherapy department, and she said, "You see that chart in the wall?" Well, we kept saying there wasn't one, and I said it to JJ, "Nope, he found one down the States. And the only problem there is the darn thing went to Moncton, California. And they kept it. So we had to fight for another one. Anyways, it was sitting on the wall, and they were showing Princess Anne. And then all of a sudden she said, "And you, young man, what do you do?" I said, "Your Highness, when you go home, would you call Charlie and ask Charlie if he would write to here and get me out of the zoo, and I'd like to go back with the regular people?" Well, if you had seen the people from George Dumont, they were up about this high, and the lady that put me on the spot just laughed. There it is. I knew he was going to do something. I just didn't know what, but I knew he was going to do something. So we had a lot of fun over that one. And after everybody quieted down, my joke went over quite well. She said, "What did you do in the Air Force?" "I was a radar." "Oh," she said, "so was I." She said, "Were you ever in GOBC?" And I said, "Oh, yes." Well, we started comparing notes, and she was doing exactly the same thing in England as I was in '74. Exactly. We were on the same basis, probably carried shifts together. So she was quite excited about that. And her prompter, whatever you call him, Hans, he wanted to go, come on, we got to get out of here. Come on, no. So she kept talking to me. And what was supposed to be 5 minutes turned out to be 20 minutes. She wasn't leaving me alone. It was hilarious. I had a great fun. And I was lucky again. And I got pictures, and I put one up here, and I put one at the entrance of her being here. So what else did I get myself in trouble over? Oh gosh, I don't know. I seem to have a habit of falling into it. Oh, one recently. As we all know, that Jeanette Pettipaw is Minister of Defense, Armed Forces. Minister of Defense? Yeah, Minister of Defense. So this roof was leaking. And the George Dumont got $2 million to fix it, but they decided to use it for something else. So 2 years later, they're just hopping. JJ, we got to get that roof fixed. I'll have it fixed for you. How in the name of Mary? Never mind. So the next time it rained, my buddy over here, I got him to get a great big bucket. We put buckets up and everything. And you could see the water coming from the ceiling into this bucket. There was actually only one, but we had 4 or 5 buckets out. I said to Jeanette, well. They were all for doing it last year. And I said, no, please, leave it till spring. They've been up there for 6 weeks because underneath where they didn't get at it, the wood was all rotten. They had to replace this, they had to replace that. We don't really know what it costs, but George Dumont is sure cringing. That's something I did. Yeah, let me see. What else has crossed my mind? I started, when I was at the hospital, I started the JJ Happy Wonder Fund, and it was a fund set up for the nurses. The nurses were always complaining to me they got their RN, but they'd like to continue their studies to old people. But there's no money. So I said, I'll pay the tuition, you pay for the rest. Well, then the Nurses Association get into it, and they were going to pay for their travel, and somebody was, so they were laughing. Till we hit 1 year, there was 5 of them. 5 of them at $500 a piece, just for the registration. Oh, they claimed it was all worth it. I was in Halifax, and they all trooped off in the same car, went down, and they said, well worth it. But that put an awful dent in my little scheme. But I've managed to give them $38,000 now. So, they've done well with it. Oh, yes. I was just looking at this picture over here. Again, if I didn't have the picture, nobody'd believe it. The RCMP decided they wanted their own band here. So they got pipes going, they got the drums and everything, but they couldn't get a bass. They had a guy to do it, everything, but they couldn't get a bass. So two of the boys said, JJ, we need you. I said, what for? They said, well, you're going to lead our band. Oh, yeah, that's going to go over big. No, we got the whole band behind you. I said, yeah, when they find out, which cell did you want me to be in? No, guarantee it. Now, this was after they reduced our volunteers. They were gone, so there was bitter there. So I went down to Sackville, and I picked the band. They were at Drew Nursing Home, right there in the driveway. I picked them up there, and I had one sweet ball. All the way through town, people clapping and having fun. And it was a walking stick I used to have. You see the walking stick? So I was going this way, and I was waving to people and everything. We got off the parade. Boy said, thank you very much. Just left it alone. 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks went by. In comes the mace. No more effing clowns. But they got their mace. They couldn't care less after that. Yeah. And we kept the picture, and the head Mounties, the head Mountie himself, Sacradelli, was in town. And I was a volunteer Mountie at the time, and they said, JJ, you should get dressed and go down and see Sacradelli. I said, why? Well, he's down there meeting the public and all that, and he doesn't like these occasions. You should go down and stir the thing up a little bit. I said, okay, so I took the time off. They gave me the time off, and I went home. And I was getting credit for the hours. I got dressed, and I came back to the big hotel down there. Anyways, that's where he was doing his presentation, and I stood at the back, and I was mimicking him and having great fun, and he said, look, young fella, get the devil up here. So I went up and I said, sir, and he said, we have many in my department that are clowns, but the first one that I ever seen dressed. The crowd just absolutely just, they didn't know what the hell to do, but so that was great. He said, what happened to your volunteers? So I told him. My. Well, he said, they're going to fire me for this. Stand there. So we got banner about what he was preaching about. And him and I stood there, and they took a full length. And he told Ottawa that they had to publish it. And they did. I've got the basic picture. I don't have any of the publications. Well, they went over well with that, but Sacradelli's kept track of it. Nevertheless, the poor man was actually booted out of the Mounties. In the end, over things of that nature, he was not the type, he was like me. He didn't worry about this or worry about that. So one of his boys did something wrong, and he said, no, the buck stops here. You're going to fire me before you fire him. Well, that's fine, you're going. He said, fine, give me 2 days or something. And he came down to see me and said, okay, now there's 2 of us. And I haven't seen him since then. He supported me in a couple of things that I wanted. But you talk about funny things that happen. We're going to leave names out of this one, but we had a young officer come into the Mounties, to the detachment. And he just seemed to be the type that was going to get promoted in a hurry. So I got to know him quite well, and we were shooting the breeze back and forth, and he ended up as second in command. So one thing comes to the other until I'm over at City Hall wandering around, which I did in my day. I used to wander around City Hall to see how much trouble I could get in. Nothing like today with all their guards and all that. And I overheard a conversation. They're going to make him chief. So I went back and told him. I said, now, you apply for it, you got it. It's already in the books. He said, I can't believe it. Yeah. So he applied for it and he got it. And about a month, 2 months after that, he called his boss to tell him how he got the job. And he said, I wouldn't have believed it if you hadn't told me. And he said, how'd that little bugger find out that you were one that they wanted? Don't ask me. He does things we don't understand. So he said, fine. So they left it alone, and he ended up as Deputy Commissioner for the province of Alberta before he retired. Very, very good man. From Dieppe. Yeah, very good man. And every once in a while I call him and say, would you please leave me alone? I'm retired.
So how would you like to polish off the end?
Don't know. I got a different dispensation. Nurses come in, they say, what can we do you for? They don't say what's wrong with me. I have learned to walk twice in my life. I have gone through military, I've gone through Mounties, I've had orchestras, had a lovely career as a clown, 25 years, I'd do it all over again. Yes, I'm in a wheelchair and I do very little walking. I got the Grand Lodge, which I was very pleased, but each Grand Lodge is on itself.
Didn't you get to be a...
Oh, the Grand Lodge, I got to be honorary junior Grand Warden. Compliments of most worshipful Tom Horthwick. That's not how I would say it. Horthwick. Anyway, I just call him Tom. And very nice honor, very, very nice honor. I'm very, very pleased with that. But
would you like another one?
Are you out of your mind?
Get a senior Grand Warden.
Oh my sweet Mary! Now you're talking miracles. Even I don't dream that big. But nevertheless, many, many things I have done. I'm trying to think of some of the ones that would be cute. The guy pulled in the Masonic Hall and he said, brother, I haven't got a dime. I got a car out there that quit. There's just no gas left in it. And I want to go home. And I said, fine. We went to a service station, grabbed an oil can, grass can, brought him gas back, took the car back. I filled up his tank. And I said, now here's enough money for a hotel room. He was going to Quebec. And I don't want you to repay me, but I want you to do that for another man. And he said, the Brotherhood will hear about this for a long while. And it was very rewarding, very, very rewarding, because I pull these tricks every once in a while. Oh, I know one trick I pulled in the Masons that I didn't mention yet. Halifax had sold their building downtown and they moved into that Catholic church. And we were going down as a group to the first meeting. So we had a 40-passenger bus registered and everybody was supposed to pay $40. So we got there, and half of them pulled out on me. I only had a half a bus load. Driver wasn't going nowhere. Well, he said, what do you think we should do, sir? I mean, we're idling here. And I said, I don't know. What's your boss's name? Good idea. Here's his number. So I called him, told him the truth. He said, you're on camera because we got cameras in those buses. I said, fine, that doesn't bother me. But now he said, you go down the aisle and you take a Goodwill collection, and whatever you get, that bus will take you to Halifax and back. And that just seems to be my way of doing things, that I don't set out, very seldom set out to do that, but that was another one that really happened for me. And I think the highlight of my career in clowning, the JJs will always be carried with me, but the Masons have been fantastic to me, and they always say, well, why should I do this, why should I do that? I've had no problems. Anything I may have done for the boys, they have doubled, come back the other direction. So maybe it's wrong, but I always say you get what you put into it. And I struggled. I really struggled. At one point, I was going to be master, and I went to every Blue Lodge in New Brunswick. And Grand Falls, I'll even tell you the name of the city. The master says, how do you do a board of inquiry? And I said, you don't know? He said, no. Well, I said, we're going to have to figure it out then, aren't we? And he said, would you mind coming into this room? And I said, no. So I went into the room, and all of a sudden the room was full. There must have been 25, 30 people in there. And I said, well, we want to know how to do it. We've never seen one done, so you're going to take us all through it. Oh, God. Yeah, the helicopter pilot was worshipful master. Offered to drive me in a helicopter, but he never got around to it. Oh, let me see. Is there anything else that we can pull? That I've done a few, and I've gotten away with most of it. I got one in the Air Force that I served time for, but this officer was really getting to me. And he said, Airman, when I tell you to come to attention, you just say, yes, sir. And I came to attention, saluted him, and said, yes, sir, when I get up so high, I'm going to pee all over you. I served 14 days for that one. I was getting too lippy. They had to put me down. So, we've had our funny ones. In Gander, I had a Boy Scout troop, and absolutely fantastic. We almost.
It's okay. I was wanting you to give me what you think would be, like, this interview is covered a lot of ground, and I would like you to say, and at the end when you're looking at this is the end of the interview, and so long, something like that.
So long, keep a stiff upper lip, and obey your mother, said Red Skeleton. Aha. Good night.